There's sometimes some debate in the OCD recovery world about whether it's all about accepting uncertainty around the intrusive thoughts, or actually, if we get the compulsions down, it's not so much about uncertainty. And the argument is that, if you conceptualize OCD around uncertainty, you see people really struggling with that need for certainty. So it's just that need for, I need to be 100% clear on this, otherwise it's too high stakes, too much danger to others. And it's certainly, you can kind of see that in the mix with clients and with myself in the past, I've seen that. At the same time, your average person isn't walking around coping with lots of uncertainty that they're aware, not handle lots of uncertainty around these OCD themes. So if the person has uncertainty about themselves and their identity, and they're worried that they might harm others or have inappropriate sexual desires for others, or if it's more around safety and there's excessive concern around contamination or needing to check to avoid harm to self or other, or it's more about happiness and it's about getting, relationships figured out if they're the right one, or getting rid of a difficult sensory motor or hyper awareness aspect of their reality that could be stuck in their mind for the rest of their life, or trying to figure out existential uncertainties so that they can live their life. Your average person is not typically having to accept that. They have what I've heard John Hirschfeld call as confidence in those things. So it's not that they have absolute certainty, but they have confidence in who they are as a person, and relative levels of risk and expectations around happiness within their life. And really, what I think, it's both. In some ways we have to learn to accept the small amounts of uncertainty around these topics, and then on the other hand, we can build confidence by getting the compulsions down. And I see this a lot with, the degree of insight in OCD. I think clients I work with who have lower insight and are more in the place of believing the OCD to be true, and then trying to do everything they can to avoid the catastrophic fears, or to just solve the doubt and get it understood so that they know what to do, and can solve that certainty. So they've lost the insight about whether this is an anxiety problem or it's a real threat. I have yet to see a client that isn't doing tons and tons of mental compulsions and often physical compulsions who has lost that insight. And I think there's a pathway that as you get the compulsions down, the confidence goes up. Doesn't mean we have absolute certainty on any of these topics, because no one does, but we can have confidence in our choices, our experience of our life to date, and where we want to go, and our values and goals, and degrees of probability of risk, based off, common understanding and maybe a scientific frame of the world. So that's how I see it. It's like, yes, we have to accept uncertainty. To borrow from John Hirschfeld again, it doesn't mean a 50-50 uncertainty. It just means, doesn't mean you're flipping the coin. It's just that there's some small uncertainty for everyone, because a human brain is not the same as the outside world, where we can't get full understanding of ourselves inside, because it's so vast. You can't look at the whole of the mind and examine all of it and every possibility and yourself in every situation, and understand the whole way that time could play out in your life and how that interacts with probabilities and risk. It's just, these things are so complex, no one could understand that with absolute certainty, and you can't with physical things, to be honest. So really, the take home message is, if we want confidence, then we need to learn to get the compulsions down. We need to learn response prevention. This is where I think ACT is particularly useful to augment ERP. You can use other methods, metacognitive therapy, rumination focused ERP, things like that can be used as well. But for me, ACT was most helpful. So I always focus on that. The more we get those compulsions down, then the more we can go back to a sort of common sense confidence in ourselves, relative degrees of risk, and where we want to go in our life. So get the compulsions down. And if it's hard to get the compulsions down, engage with some of the material on the channel around automatic mental compulsions and the skills around diffusion that can help us if that mental compulsion and doubting and analyzing and ruminating is all running automatically. We need to learn the skills to be able to let that go. It's difficult.